All right, we did it. Another science experiment in the books. Now it's time for the report. And you might be asking, Mr. Good, why do we have to write science reports? When you write a science report, you think more deeply about the experiment, the experience as well. What did we do? Why did we do it? Why does it matter? And how does that help us answer our big question for the unit, which is, why is it windier in the afternoon than in the morning when you're next to the Great Salt Lake, or really in most places? Also, it helps us work on our reading and writing skills. If ever you want to convince anybody about anything, usually, the main way people do that now still is by writing it down. And so by working on our writing skills and organizing our writing, it helps us to organize our thoughts as well. So writing science reports is a really valuable skill that it's not just useful in science, it's useful, for whatever you end up doing. So let's get to it. When you did your experiment, before you did it, you designed your experiment, you identified the different variables, the independent, dependent, and controlled variables, you designed the experiment, and then during the experiment, you collected your data. All of this stuff is going to be really useful for you when you write your experiment. So to write your experiment, you're already here, so you click on Heating, Cooling, Earth Report, and you should see below this video your document. This is a live document. You can write on it right in this page in Canvas, or you can open it up into a new tab and edit it there. It's going to automatically save no matter where you do it. So I have one here just as an example. And you might notice there's not much here. Last time we wrote a report, I wrote out the beginning of the sentences for you. Because we've already done that once and you know what to do, I left these blank for you. So let's go through a few of these together just to make sure we're on the same page. And then you're on your own. This will be your first full science report on Microsoft Word too. So you'll notice there are different categories here. There's the title, the abstract, experimental design, data, and conclusion. These are all also on the second page of your packet right here. This rubric should look very familiar to you because it's pretty much the same one we used for the Barbie report. So the title, the abstract, the experimental design, data, and conclusion. And each one of these tells you what should be in that sentence for each section. On the back, this is an example science report. It's not about anything we've ever done. It's just a random one that I did years ago with some students. It's designed the same way. Title, abstract, experimental design, data, and conclusion. Notice that the title is just a few words that describes your experiment. Abstract is 3 sentences. Experimental design is about 5 sentences. Data has the data table and a graph. And then the conclusion, this is the most important part because it's what you took away from the experiment. Let's go through a couple of these together, one by one. First thing says, your report should include the following in separate sections. Because I already designed it in separate sections for you, this should really be a no-brainer. Just check it off right away. Title. Your title should describe the investigation in a few words. So I'm going to go back to mine. What would be a good title for this experiment? Well, you could just use something that we've already thought about, like, here's one. Heating and Cooling of Earth. Okay, so that could be a good title. Heating, cooling of, and if I wanted to be more specific, I could say sand and water. Okay, so I've done my title, and I checked it off. Abstract should include 3 sentences. The first one says, describe the purpose of your experiment. Have I done that before? Yes, you did it. Right here. What is the purpose of your experiment? The purpose of this experiment is to determine how the different earth, water, and sand materials affects the temperature of the surface. So you can just type that sentence down there, and just to be really clear, I'll just do it for you real quick. This should be the first sentence in the abstract. Period. Spelling error. Shoot. Determine. There we go. Okay. Okay, then we go back to our sheet. Did I do the purpose? Yes, check it off. State your hypothesis with your reasoning. Your hypothesis was kind of here, but we all thought about it. So your hypothesis might be something like, I thought the sand would heat up more than the water and cool down more than the water because, and don't forget that because part, because it says with your reasoning. Don't just say which one you think would heat up more. Include your reasoning. And then finally, in the abstract, briefly state what you found or learned in the end. Maybe we'll wait on this one because, well, we haven't really thought about the end much. So we'll come back to that and add that sentence later. The experimental design section, materials you used, describe your procedure, what steps, and if you were really good, you wrote out your steps. But if you didn't, that's okay. You know what steps it took to do the experiment, so you could just write those out. Identify the independent, dependent, and controlled variables. We've already done that. All that stuff is right here. Independent, dependent, and controlled variables. You can just write those out in sentence form. Data. Okay, so for data, I do ask you to include a data table and some sort of graph. To do that, you will go back to Canvas. You can hit the next button here, or just on the home page, click on the graph one. And I've given you this here. It says load data. This is an example Excel sheet that sort of explains how to enter your data in and how to make a really nice graph using Excel. So this is all of the example stuff that I've given you. Don't use this. This is made up data. I just made it up. So it says here, create your own data table and graph below this line. So you will create something that looks kind of like this, depending on your graph, and you'll put it below this line. Once you do that, I'm going to copy this as an example. You can right-click, copy, and I'm crossing my fingers here, hoping this works. In the data section, yes, okay. I might change that color so it's not obnoxiously yellow. So that's the data table, and that's this part here. I'm going to check this off that I've done it. Did my data table. And to create a graph from that data table, all of the instructions on how to do that are here. So you'll do all this stuff below the line, but I'm going to copy this one as an example. Click on the outside. Should be able to copy and paste this just like the other one. Crossing my fingers, hope this works. Ah, there it is. And you can organize these to make them look nicer in your report. I think there's a way to do that. Let's see. Format picture. Maybe not. I'm going to figure this out so you can like move stuff around and make it look nice. And then finally, conclusion. Ah, get out of here. Okay, the conclusion is right here. Make sure to answer all of these questions in your conclusion. This is worth the most points. It's worth 3 points. So make sure to answer these questions. What can you say about how the light affects the heating and cooling of different earthy materials? How does this relate to the sun heating the real Earth, like by the Great Salt Lake? And do you think that the heating of Earth's surface by the sun has anything to do with wind? Why or why not? Once you've got that, you should have a final report that looks beautiful. Like this one, something to be proud of, something that you can say, oh, I did a really good experiment, I analyzed it, I understand what it means, and look at how awesome I am. So that's what we're working on today and tomorrow. This video is here for you. You can go back through it. If you need help with anything, I'm also here live in person. Look, it's me, Mr. Good. Hey, Mr. Good. All right, if you need help, please ask me. Otherwise, enjoy yourselves.